I think the first misconception with feathered lighting is that it's softer than using the light straight onto your subject. But if you think about it, if this is your light source and this is facing the subject, it's at the largest size it can be when it's facing your subject, because watch what happens if this is my light source. As I turn it, it becomes smaller, the surface area of it becomes less. So you actually end up with a harder light source. But at the same time, I don't feel like people are completely wrong when they describe it as being a soft light source, because what they're describing is the effect of the light having not as much in the way of hotspots on it. Look, let's say this is my light source. It could be a softbox or whatever, but let's use this as an example. If I aim this at my subject like this, we can imagine that this section here is where the bulb is, okay? And as that light comes out, even with diffusion panels, the center part of this light is going to be brighter than the edges are. It's going to have more of a hot spot in the middle. The light's going to radiate out from this. And as it radiates out, it's going to kind of mimic the pattern of what's inside. Although we have diffusion layers of material, it still happens like that the center is still going to end up being brighter and hotter than the outside parts are. So what feathering is, it's turning that main beam, like if I were to do it to you as a camera here, it's turning that main beam away, so you're not in the direct beam of the center of the light. You're getting the light from this part here coming across. And I guess the theory of that is that you don't have a hot spot within that. And so you get a more even light from top to bottom. And by doing so, the light does appear potentially to be softer. So if you can imagine, if this light's aimed at me, if I turn it away and aim it more like this would be feathered on me now. That light wouldn't be hitting the background behind me so much as it would if I turn it like this. It's going to hit me and the background. So what it does is it also darkens down the background because the light is going past the subject. So as that light then moves away from hitting the background and we're sort of catching the subject, but not so much the background, we're going to end up with a darker background. And I think it's that effect more that gives us what looks like feathered lighting, as in the examples I'm showing you from my own work. And it's a really nice way of lighting things. It's one of my preferred methods for lighting because it gives a dramatic light without having to use a very hard light to do it. Dramatic lighting is usually reserved for hard light effects, where we're using a small light source and we're getting hard shadows. But with feathered light, we're getting a sort of best of both worlds, where the light is still comparatively soft, but it's very controlled and we're not lighting up so much of the background. If we use things like shoot-through umbrellas, it tends to just spill the light everywhere and everything gets lit, and it's harder to create these more dramatic and more moody looks. So I wouldn't dwell any more on the hard versus soft lighting aspect of it, but I would think more about the dramatic aspect of it and what that brings, because that's what we really care about when we're doing this kind of lighting. So how do we do it? In effect, we simply turn the softbox to the side. But one of the tools you can use is you can actually move your softbox more off to the side as well. So it's worth experimenting with light and to get it to the point where you want it. This is what I really want you to take away from it. Feathered lighting allows you to light the subject, but keep the light off the background. I think that's probably the best aspect of feathered lighting that's most usable and applicable to your photography. It's particularly good if you want to work in small spaces. One of the big issues with working in small spaces is that the walls are near to you and the walls just bounce light all over the place. So it's harder to come up with more dramatic lighting. You can still do it in a small room. The pictures I've been showing you are taken in very small spaces, and yet it still works because of the way that light falls off. If you want to know more about that, check out this video in the link above, and that will explain more of that to you. But controlling light is all about understanding light, and once you understand it, you can use it to shape light the way you want it to be. You don't need to have tons of different modifiers or lots of different lights. You can do a lot with just 1 or 2 lights. You can really get a lot out of a really simple setup, but you have to know what you're doing. And so I would encourage you to experiment as much as you can, because it's experimentation and not being scared of making loads of mistakes that's going to take your photography forward. You have to work out what doesn't work and what does work, and how to repeat that and do it consistently. That takes a lack of fear of failure in order to get to that point. Otherwise you'll stick with very traditional 45 degrees straight at the subject lighting setups, which are fine, they're okay, but it shouldn't be the only lighting setup that you know. It's much better if you know a whole variety of different lighting setups and you can choose what suits you best rather than just going to the easiest solution all the time. If you like the look of some of my studio work, you might want to check out my studio portrait photography editing course. The link will be in the description down below. Anyway, that is all for today. I will see you again in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.